I'm a player, 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 oh, 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 I'm a player. If you see me looking clean cut, matching from head to toe, dipping with a mean strut, throwing and blowing green stuff. If you see me looking clean cut, matching from head to toe, dipping with a mean strut.
Hello and welcome once again to another episode of Ghettofabulous Kings of War. Starting the new year off with a 2,200 point battle, Invade, my Night-Stalkers versus the Brotherhood. Got a new player in the club, brought his old school Bretonnians, which have magically morphed into the Brotherhood now. So always a good thing to have a bit of variety of armies to play, so that's a welcome addition. His army list had he was going for a monster hunter type theme. So he's got 3 regiments of the Abyssal Hunt. Those are basically knights, but they must have 2-handed weapons or something, so they only have 4 defense, but they gain +1 crushing strength. A horde of bowmen, which for every other army would basically be crossbowmen. They're move or shoot, and they have a +1 piercing. 2 regiments of flying monstrous cavalry, the Order of Forsaken. 2 trebuchets, 3 Forsaken beasts with the breath weapon upgrade. A basically a wizard on a horse. I believe she also had the inspiring talisman. And Exemplar Forsaker, the hero on flying monstrous creature. I had various magic items scattered throughout. I don't have all of them. Again, like the inspiring talisman, I think the flying hero probably had 6 up armor, etc. My army list, pretty similar to what I normally play. 3 hordes of fiends with a variety of magical items, 3 regiments of fiends, the Legion of Bloodworms with the potion of strength, 3 shadow hulks, and 2 planar apparitions. So no shooting, a lot of punchy, decent speed, and heal 14 ultimately, which is a good thing. Trying the universal battle report terrain stuff this time. So here's my graphic of the battlefield. A couple hills, some rough terrain, 1 forest, height 4 impassable on the right there, and a little wall. Here's what it actually looks like on the tabletop. Couple things had to edit, like another little building, but actually a ginormous rock, but ultimately serves the same purpose. So here's the graphical representation of the deployment. As usual, I try to work on overwhelming a flank. So I picked the left for a variety of reasons. That's just the kind of way it worked out. Top left corner, his farthest left regiment of knights there actually is an accidental duplicate, so it will not be on further pictures. But so he's only got 3, not 4 regiments of knights. That'd make it even a harder battle for me. My pre-game thoughts after looking at the lists. This is a nightmare scenario for me. The other scenario that really bothers me is when the opponent has lots of breath weapons or magical shooting, which negates the only advantage my army has, really, of stealth. And that's because, realistically, he's got a lot of, 3 flying units. They're all decent damage-wise. The monstrous creature hero and the 2 regiments of flying monstrous cav. I can't engage them if they don't want me to. They have to choose to charge me. Whether I set up a bait or I force the issue, ultimately they get to charge first and they get to dictate the flow of the battle. I don't have anything to force them to charge. His shooting isn't terrible. It's not great. It's not terrible. It's kind of mediocre, but it's enough to force me forward. Between the 2 trebuchets and the horde of archers, they'll do a decent amount of damage, and I can't ignore it. In fact, I think that horde of his archers may have had the +1 to hit item, so hitting on 4 is natural. Even with my stealth, they're still hitting on 5, piercing 1, which is not good. His war beasts aren't a major threat, but they're tough. Breath weapons, again, not a major threat because it's not a huge amount. But it basically boils down to they're relatively cheap chaff with defense 5, 15, 17 nerve. They're just going to hold me up. And if I have to rush forward, his knights do an incredible amount of damage on the charge. His flyers can move in and around the flanks. He's dictating the flow of the battle, which is always a bad thing. The only good part for me, and which will go into my planning, is the mission is to advance and to get into the enemy's half of the board, which is one of the reasons I don't take a lot of shooting units, because they end up not taking objectives, not moving forward, and a lot of this game is focused on objectives. So if I can rush forward, if I can force the battle to stay in his table half, I have a feeling I'm going to lose most of my army, but maybe I can get more of my army in his table half that he can get in mine. The only hope. It's still a Hail Mary, but it's the best I got. So again, here's the deployment. We're going to go over a game plan, I think, in a second. So you overheard the overall plan is just rush in, take the fight to his half, and keep the fight there and hope for a win. We're going to start by taking my right flank and trying to tie up his flyers, maybe that regiment of knights over there as well. These units, whatever I send over here is going to die. These are all going to be sacrificial lambs, but the Legion of Bloodworms can survive a decent amount of damage. The regiments of fiends, surprisingly, I mean defense 4, but they're 13, 16 nerve. They're not super tough, but they're tougher than you think. They get wavered a lot, so that can still buy me time. If I'm really lucky, maybe I'll get to punch back and kill something. I'm not hoping for that too much. I'm just hoping to tie up his mobile units long enough for the rest of my army to work. Speaking of the rest of my army to work, the left flank here is going to have to roll through these war beasts and turn the left flank. That is not going to be an easy task. My punchers there are the Shadow Hulks, and they are not very fast. And the second one there, who's behind the forest, is not really set up to move quickly. So that's bad on me. And this little group in the middle here, they're going to have to advance, stay out of charge range of his knights, but close enough that they can't support my attack on the left. And then, after I roll the left flank, they're going to have to rush in and support the attack on the middle. It's actually going to be more pivotal than you might think initially, but he's got a lot of knights and things, and I can't have them interfering with my attack on the left. It's already going to be a heavy lift to begin with. He wins first turn, and he decides to take it, and he's operating kind of like I expected from the beginning. You can see on the right there, he's already advancing pretty rapidly with his regiment of flying guys, and they're just out of charge arc from my regiment of fiends there. The middle is mostly staying still. He's advanced a bit, but he's obviously waiting for me to move up into his charge range. And then his left, his war beast, moved up a little bit. Again, not a lot of motion. He's waiting for me to come forward, allowing him time to shoot me and then countercharge me as I get in range. Graphical depiction. And shooting. Shooting is relatively weak, except he does get one hit, trebuchet right on my planar apparition, and kills it. This is not a good turn of events for me, and I was a little careless. Normally my opponents don't bother shooting at the planar apparition, which I think is a mistake, because they're very they're kind of a linchpin, especially early in the game. But because they have stealth, and they're hitting on 6s with most artillery, they end up going for the Shadow Hulks, so they can hit them on the 5-up. And then I can just heal it with my planar apparitions. This was a lucky shot, but I think the right option for him, and it's going to cause me problems in the future, I think. Bottom of turn 1, as discussed, we're going to have to rush forward on the left. On the right, the regiment of fiends just rushes forward as a sacrificial lamb, and the middle just kind of advances and turns to wait their turn, stalling his advance on the right there. So here it is. Yeah, and nothing else for me to do, so we'll move on to top of turn 2. You can see he continues his advance on the right. The regiment has moved forward even more and then rotated to face the middle. He does charge my regiment of fiends there with both his monstrous hero and the regiment of creatures, and everything else is content to sit and wait for the most part. You can see his war beast kind of consolidated to one little wall there, but ultimately it's not a huge amount. You can see the graphical representation here. And a good round for him. And I suppose in some ways for me. On the right there, he hits that regiment pretty hard, does 9 wounds to him, but they don't die, they waver. So I guess mission accomplished to some degree. They're going to tie him up at least for another turn. His shooting does nuke that other regiment of fiends I had slotted for sacrifice, tying up the right flank, so that's not good for me. And some shooting, I think breath weapons maybe ultimately, on the horde of fiends in the woods there. Bottom of 2, I multi-charge on the left there. Those 2 hordes are actually hitting that war beast in the middle. One-on-one, they're not going to take him out in one turn. I gotta kill stuff, so together we may be able to take it out. You can see in the middle I kind of advance. That unit in the middle there, the horde with the terror, pipes of terror, I'm hoping, it's a kind of a bait really, I'm hoping he'll take that regiment of flying cav on the right there, flank charge them. He'll do a lot of damage, but I don't think he'll kill them. And then my Bloodworm Legion will be able to wipe out that regiment of monstrous flying cavalry. And I'm expecting upper left corner, that regiment of knights is going to countercharge my Pathfinder fiends. If they can hold on, if they can survive, the pipes of terror fiends there will be able to charge back and support, I think. So, a bit of a gambit here, but that's what I got. We do kill off that central war beast, and I heal most of the wounds off the Pathfinder fiends, so they can have their best shot possible of surviving the inevitable countercharge. The graphic here shows that catapult would be blocking, but realistically it's not that large and it's back further, so that charge is not difficult for him to make. And of course he takes it. On the right, lower right corner there, he does not take the bait and charge my horde of fiends in the flank. He saw it. He thought it. He talked out loud the damage he would do and said, "No, it's probably not going to work." And then he instead just patiently moved around the flank some more, combo charged that wavered regiment of fiends, and charged against both my fiends with his war beast on the left there. And you can see here's the actual picture, so you can see, yep, no problem fitting in. This is going to be a critical, if I can hold here, that'll be very useful for me. But no, they do not hold. Those knights hit very hard on the charge, and with the war beast contributing a few extra wounds, they wiped that horde out. The regiment on the right, obviously, it was already wavered, it got nuked, and shooting puts a smattering of wounds on my guys in the middle. So not a good turn for me. So a little bit of desperation on the left. Because the Shadow Hulk is height 4, he could see over the horde of fiends, and I actually could multi-charge into the Beast of War. So I'm hoping they'll break him together. The Pipes of Terror guys charge the Abyssal Hunt. That's going to be a tough charge if they roll well, or he rolls, or I roll well on my nerve check. I could break or waver them, but that's not. It's a tough carry, as I say. Middle just kind of reforms to try to hold off and tempt the flying units to attack them. My monstrous creatures, for whatever reason, I have a difficulty getting them to rotate in my images, so everything keeps facing either straight up or straight down. They're facing appropriately as they move. So use your imaginations if you have more than one. Did a lot of damage on the left, but I didn't kill anything. 10 wounds on the Beast of War, 9 wounds on the Abyssal Hunt Regiment. Healed a few wounds with my Planar Apparition, but not what I needed to happen this turn. So we're set up to get hit hard next turn. And we are hit hard. Both War Beasts double charged. The first unit of Fiends, I'm not too concerned. I mean, they're what they should be doing, maybe 7-ish wounds. Not good, but they should. My guys should waver. They got the Dwarven Ale, so they got a shot at hitting next turn. The Pipes of Terror guys are going to get nuked. A flank charge. Just the regular charge is bad enough. The flank charge is going to seal their fate. Lower right corner. He again patiently works his way around. So now he's got a rear charge set up with one unit. The other unit of flying cavalry is just sitting, biding his time, controlling the middle of the board. And his hero and monstrous cavalry, instead of contributing there, just flies into the middle out of everyone's charge arc and sets up rear charges for my left flank. So you can see here, working his way around on the right and just smashing on my left. And sure enough, kind of what I expected, my Horde of Fiends does get wavered. Now, he actually rolled a little less than I expected, so that's good. Now I just have to make the headstrong check next turn. My Shadow Hulk in the middle there got shot quite a bit and took quite a few wounds, and I don't have the healing to keep him alive like I normally do, so that's not good. On my turn, I have the Horde of Fiends back up, so they're out of the way. That lets the Shadow Hulk. It was close. I might have been able to get a flank charge off on that Beast of War. It was very questionable. So I just backed the Horde of Fiends up instead, and that let him charge in the front, and it was not an issue. He only needs to do a few wounds. Of course, I'll be kicking myself if he fails to kill it, but the regiment, I could have had the regiment of Fiends flank charge and contribute. I'm kind of desperate here, so I decided to go for the Trebuchet. I should wipe it out and then be able to reform and face the center and maybe threaten something from the flank or the rear. The Shadow Hulk was able to charge the Abyssal Hunt that was wounded. He, again, we're talking should-bes, he should be able to do enough wounds to finish them off. And then the Bloodworms in the middle there, kind of weird, but I moved them forward and rotated. Instead of taking a rear charge from one unit and a front charge from the other, this way they're taking 2 double charges. So ultimately it's still going to be 4 attacks, but the flying guys on my right there will have to land and shuffle into the difficult terrain, so lose their Thunderous and get a negative to hit. So that's my best hope at surviving. Here's the actual board. So again, my graphics aren't 100% on, but it's close. And overall, I do what I was hoping to do. I kill the 3 units, the Wounded War Beast, the Wounded Abyssal Hunt, and the Trebuchet. I heal up a bit on my Dwarven Ale Fiend Horde. Not enough, because they're probably going to get flank charged by the Abyssal Hunt guys there, but who knows? It's possible. They may be able to pull this out. I'm just doubting it. Here's what it looks like after that turn. You can see the Shadow Hulk on the right there has reformed, so if the Abyssal Hunt does as I think they will, at least he'll be able to charge them back. And if by some miracle my Horde of Fiends survives, he'll have a flank charge. Top of 5, he takes that flank charge. Of course, the Beast of War charges my Shadow Hulk, and he does take the double charge into my Bloodworms, and the other group of Abyssal Hunt dudes charge into my Shadow Hulk. Can't remember if he worked his way around the cover, if he had to go through it. Even going through it, he's got a decent chance of killing that guy. And in fact, he does. On the left there, the Abyssal Hunt does kill the wounded Horde of Fiends, so they can reform and face the Shadow Hulk. The other Abyssal Hunt guys dispatch my Shadow Hulk. And then, if the worst, I guess not the worst, but the double charge of my Bloodworms wavers them. So they're accomplishing their goal of tying up the flank, but not of killing anything. I was hoping at least get 1 unit wiped out of this, but it was not to be. Bottom of turn 5, You can see I double charge his Beast of War on the left. Healing is kind of a moot point anymore. Anything that comes into my half, I guess, back from my half of the board to kill me in my half of the board is really a win because it's taking points away from him. So instead, I charge the Planar Apparition into the flank of the knights there, which normally is not you don't normally charge with him, but healing is not that important. He's got 4 attacks, so 8 in the flank, hitting on 4s, and they're only defense 4, so you should put a couple wounds in if I'm lucky. And then the Shadow Hulk charging the front. Here's what it looks like. And I was not lucky. We did kill the final War Beast, but we do horribly, only doing 4 wounds against the Abyssal Hunt Regiment when, we should have done maybe 7, so not great. It was still going to be tough to even waver them, but that's not what I needed. And, yeah. Top of 6, just the end of 6, really. He wipes out my Shadow Hulk with his regiment of knights and falls back. And, of course, they destroy the Bloodworms and reform, or overrun, as appropriate. And that pretty much ends the game. I finished my turn, but it was a moot point. I can't remember exactly how many units he had in my table half, so I put a range there. He had between 1,050 and 800 points to my 465. Either way, it was a pretty sound thumping. So, AAR. Let's talk this one out. It was brutal, as I expected. I don't have, there's a lot of different counters for flying units. And normally, most armies may have like a flying unit or a flying unit and a hero that flies. This army had 3 competent flying combat units and 3 competent fast cavalry units. I don't have shooting to threaten them or weaken them. I don't have flying units of my own to keep them away. Shambling units, a lot of armies may have 1 or 2 of those. So if something flies in nearby or right behind you, you can omnidirectionally attack. So you can kind of keep those flying units away. I don't have any of those. So that's a weakness of my army. I was careless with my Planar Apparition. I let him get punked on the first turn when really I should have been a lot more careful with him. Like I said, most opponents don't shoot at it because of its stealth. So I could have placed him behind the forest. I could have put the Shadow Hulks in front to block line of sight. If I were playing against my army, I would shoot the Planar Apparition. But I got careless, didn't think about it, didn't consider it, and losing that heal 7 for the first several turns at least hurt me, I think, quite a bit. And it was avoidable. I think overall, with the armies and the scenario, I had the right game plan. And, well, it says very close to winning with a question mark. I don't know if I would have won, but I could have made it more competitive. My gambit on the right flank did hold up his flyers for several turns. And it says at the bottom there, if the worms hadn't wavered, I would have killed a unit on the countercharge, I'm pretty sure. So, while I was hoping to do damage, the more important piece of holding his flying units up was achieved. I think they didn't kill that unit until the top of turn 6, is when the Bloodworms may have died. So they did hold that up and keep my left flank free to act. And the left flank, I knew it was going to be a tough attack for them, and they almost did it. But it was too much to chew through. They don't hit hard enough against defense 5 monsters like that. They're not going to kill them in one turn. And that's basically what it boiled down to. So I think it was the right game plan. I just needed a little bit of luck, and I didn't get it. And I needed luck because, realistically, he did everything right. His army had an advantage over mine. He was incredibly patient. He didn't take the bait. He didn't rush it. He set up methodical charges, took his time, because, again, he had time. I didn't have anything to threaten his stuff with. So there was no reason for him to rush. He could take his time, set up the advantageous multi-charges, and then just wipe me out, or waver me in one turn. Um, I guess a separate issue, kind of thinking this through, I will probably make a separate video talking about Night-Stalkers in general, just my lessons learned, my thoughts on them. And I've seen rumors, I haven't seen the actual leaks, but rumors regarding the upcoming Clash of Kings supplement, which overall I think is going to hurt the Night-Stalkers. Um, I think the Night-Stalkers are a fun army. They're good to have in the club because they're just different. They mix things up quite a bit. But a pure Night-Stalker force has some holes. I think that's going to... I haven't looked at the competitive scene, tournaments in general, but my gut feeling is the holes they have keep them from being a top-level competitive army. Still good enough to be, again, competent to play with and fun to play with and competitive, but not... They would probably not be my first choice as a tournament army. I did, a spoiler there, I have added a little bit of shooting for some future battle reports. It did not go well for me. And I have a couple other armies I play, like the Twilight Kin, where shooting is much more effective. But trying to work it in with this army has not worked so far for me. However, brainstorming a bit, I have ordered some allied forces that I think will provide a cost-effective, more threatening shooting threat to my army, which may help. So in the upcoming battle reports, hopefully I'll be able to showcase that. And we'll see how that works. I'm not a huge fan of allied forces, but I think it may be a necessity in this case. And I think Night-Stalkers as an allied force are an excellent thing to add to an army. Since they don't, a lot of other armies have what I call kind of an inspiring tax. You have to have something inspiring in the army, or ideally you'll put something inspiring for your allied forces, and that kind of hinders how much you can get out of it. With Night-Stalkers, you don't have to worry about that. Your enemy provides inspirational stuff, so if there's a hole in your army and a Night-Stalker unit fills it, especially if it's combat, not shooting related, that they can work for you, I think. So, let me know what you think. Give me your comments below. Let me know what you want to see, what you want me to add or take away from my reporting format, which is never consistent anyway, so who knows what you're going to get next time. Anyway, good gaming, have fun, hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you on my next report.